eyes on the actual issue, and this one was very unique situation that I hadn't seen in my career. So I'm happy to be able to share that with you all. I'd like to acknowledge Miss Belinda Ellerby from the Clayton County Library, as well as Miss Kim Jones with Clayton County Library. Our sponsors, Lady with a Hammer, Cascade Fence Company, and the #1 chef in all of Georgia, and the veteran Chef Tiffany, and her soon-to-be opening restaurant, Lola Pecan. And then my banking family from Pinnacle Financial Partners, Miss Tracy Powell, VP extraordinaire, Miss Cheryl Rutherford, who always takes good care of me, and Miss Paris Hudnall. She's here. We used to work together on the Empire Board of Realtors, along with Shawnee Aldridge, who we worked together at the Empire Board as well. Shawnee was also over Women's Council, and she's my partner in crime on the podcast. She'll be up here on the panel today, and she has traveled the country with me. Mr. Bilal Sharif, who was a past president of the Empire Board, national president for YRD, and he is currently on the board of directors for the Appraisal Foundation. So he's outgrown us. He's national and big time now, and we always kind of go back and forth about reconsideration of value. I consider myself a subject matter expert because I've been doing it 38 years. He considers himself a subject matter expert, so we just like to debate about our experiences. So, unity doesn't mean uniformity. He's a real estate broker. I'm a real estate appraiser, so we come at it from different angles. A couple of reminders and housekeeping issues. No personal stories. General questions are welcome. Personal questions should be asked outside of the group setting. Again, this is about reconsideration of value in the basics of property valuation, presented by me, Thaddeus Dawson. And thank you. What is a reconsideration of value? So, reconsideration of value is when you feel like your property has been not appraised accurately. And so most of the time that is people feel like they have been undervalued. Very, very rarely do you hear people complain about being overvalued. Typically, the only time that people of color are overvalued is for property taxes, and we are 15% overtaxed when it comes to property values. Part of the other issue with that is we do not appeal our property taxes. And I can talk to people until they are blue in the face. I think we suffer some sort of trauma, which we do, but the feeling is that if we appeal our property taxes, that somehow it will take down your property value. Nothing could be further from the truth. And it's typically people that are very wealthy who always appeal their property taxes. Raise your hands, Mr. Williams, because he appealing his property taxes every day and twice on Sundays. And so again, we're here about reconsideration of value. We, black people, lose approximately $400 billion a year due to undervaluation. And that's $200 billion in real estate, $100 billion that we lose with black farmers. And then the secret silent killer for black people is heirs property. Over 70% of black people do not have a will or an estate. And so part of our Outside the Barn series and bringing awareness is heirs property training. Shani and I both have traveled the country to become certified in heirs property training with the Policy Center. We had the pleasure of recently writing a 3-hour land valuation course for the Policy Center that will be utilized for their trainer 21-hour series. So we'll be having an extensive training moving forward. whatever Miss Ellaby and Cousin Kim gets us on the schedule here. Here in Clayton County, a lot of really, really good and exciting things going on. The impact of inaccurate appraisals can affect loans, sales price negotiations, and refinancing. And typically that's where we lose in the refinancing and the inability to tap into the equity that we have built up. So this is very impactful because the equity is what you utilize for down payments for your children to be able to buy houses, pay for college, weddings, all the things that are life issues that help improve the quality of life. Let me just go back a little bit. One of the things that we originally started off doing was our whole goal was to be able to close the wealth gap with accurate valuations. I have since shifted our priorities in that whole fight. One of our other podcasting partners is economist William Michael Cunningham. And one of the things that we have in talking to him and several other ag economists is it'll take 500 years for us to close the wealth gap. So I'm not actually going to see that. And so I want to try to see something I'm going to have an impact on. So what it would take is $200 billion to close the poverty gap. So I want to focus on closing the gap with poverty and improve quality of life. And part of that improved quality of life is us getting back to the earth, to the land. So that's what the outside the barn is. Part of what we're doing with the black farmers is market analysis and affordable housing and development. And so if we're able to get back to the rural communities for just because there's no opportunities with housing and there is a shortage, and we can work on cooperative living and improve quality of life. So that improved quality of life includes farm to table, so we're eating better. And right now it's kind of hard to focus on closing the wealth gap when we don't have food security. So our whole goal is to focus on food security and closing the poverty gap, which I really think we have an opportunity to be able to do. Just if we get accurate valuations alone, that would be able to close the poverty gap. Not to mention if 1% of the wealthy just paid what they owed in taxes. I'm just saying, that would go a long way to closing the poverty gap as well. Mr. Williams, I'm sorry. I know you pay your fair share. I wasn't talking about you, sir. And so one of the things that is unique with the reconsideration of value and with appraisers, there's a group of appraisers that believe that there is no bias in appraising. I would beg to differ, and there's a couple of different things that are going on. I travel the country, and these are real people with real situations. The first couple, that lady actually passed. They're both professors in Baltimore. In their case, is ongoing. The other couple, they had a case going on that was settled as well in California. And then the single guy, his case was in Cincinnati. His name is Terry Horton. And we actually worked on that case. And we started with the reconsideration of value. And after we did that case, it was recommended to the National Community Reinvestment Coalition, who then recommended it to HUD. So it's currently at HUD in the Justice Department. In the current climate, I don't know where it actually ends up now, but as a result of that, in those stories, we started getting calls from all over the country, which then started me to be able to, it sparked me to go and start answering these calls and then just to really see what was going on. And what I found out was that there was nobody advocating for black people in the appraisal valuation space, and there was nobody advocating for black people in the appraisal space to actually become appraisers. So we started on this mission. And this baby and this project will actually be 2 years old in June. We started at Super Saturday at Atlanta Technical College. Little did I know that it would be where it is today and have grown as much as it has grown. But this slide is important to me because when they say that it doesn't exist, and a lot of the appraisal community talks about they try to just say, they never talk about the people. They say that folks are in line trying to get a handout and make a money play based on some fictitious opportunities in the valuation space. And I totally disagree. And sometimes it reminds me of my grandmother when I was younger. I used to, y'all probably don't believe this, but I used to run my mouth all the time. And so my grandmother used to always tell me, did you ever think about why God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth? That sometimes you just need to shut up and listen. Sometimes I wish the appraisal community would just shut up and listen, but they don't. They continuously pontificate from a position of paternalistic privilege to say that this doesn't exist, and these are real people that are really hurting. So, with that being said, this is the rescinding of the PAVE initiative. Last week, I believe it was dated March 19th in HUD, and the reconsideration of value was rescinded as a process. So that is with HUD. Nobody has really spoken about it with the lending institutions and what their positions will be on it moving forward. I think it's something that's relevant and extremely necessary. I believe that people need to be heard, and what the reconsideration of value process does, it allows the public to be heard, but it also allows the appraisers to be heard, and it doesn't skip to accusing the appraisers of impropriety, racism, or bias. But what it does do is give them the opportunity to be able to explain their work. But the argument has to be made objectively. It can't be an emotional, I think, I feel. And that's hard to distinguish when you're talking about your house, because you do think, you do feel, and some of these things are real, and it's not just your imagination that you have been undervalued. So this reconsideration of value process was really new to begin with HUD and with the public. The VA has had this process for a very long time, and it's been very effective. And okay, so the other piece that I know I skipped a little bit, but the other piece that I wanted to talk about, so this is the VA Tidewater process. This is a process that the VA offers for their veterans, and why it's so effective and it's the best appraisal process that you can have is that the VA does not care about the lender, the builder, or the realtor. The VA's primary concern is the veteran. And if you talk to the chief appraiser for the VA, James Hazlett, he will tell you, it's not about the veteran, it's all about the veteran. So in our fight for forgotten communities, the veterans are one of our forgotten communities that have been just left behind. Appraisers are part of the forgotten community, and of course you all are part of the forgotten community, and I am blessed to be able to represent and speak for the forgotten community. The VA Tidewater process, again, is very, first the VA protects the veteran, but secondly, the VA protects the appraiser. Nobody protects the appraiser. The appraisers have been used for fodder and suffer from PTSD. So they've been accused of bias. Some of it has been wrongful. And a lot of the bias that you see in appraising is systemic and institutional. So we have to go all the way back to redlining with HUD originally. We have to go back to the Federal Highway and Transportation Department, breaking down the neighborhoods. All of this was done with intentionality, and it's not going to get fixed overnight. But we just started to get some resolution, and the reconsideration of value is a real resolution in the process to to solve systemic bias. When I went to Washington, D.C. 2 years ago, I had two solutions. First one was black people doing appraisals for black people. That wasn't really realistic because there's not enough black appraisals. But in my career, that was always what happened early on. But now I have a realistic short-term solution. That's the reconsideration of value. And it's fair to you, and it's also fair to the appraisal community. And I just happen to be uniquely positioned to do both at a very high level. I've been an appraiser for 38 years, and I've been a black man for 59. So I'm do a really good job at both of those. And so I'm gonna step back just a little bit on my slide here. And this is FHFA working paper that was put out in November by the FHFA last year. It's since been taken down from their website, and you can't access it. But what it does is it talks about systemic bias and the appraisal system. It also talks about market conditions adjustments. It states that only 10% of all appraisals utilize market conditions adjustments. And if you utilize market conditions adjustments, especially in a hyper market, you could eliminate a lot of the past appraisal bias that you've seen because it would have been accounted for in that market conditions adjustment. So if only 10% of all appraisals are using market condition adjustments, that means 90% of all appraisals are not using market conditions adjustments. And so when the appraisers start talking about this isn't real and everybody's on the money grab, not only did they write this paper, but if you look, they took a little bit less than 1 million appraisals. That's 987,000 appraisals, and they utilize over 4.1 million comparable sales. This is significant because this is a data set and you're using data science. So this is a part of also what we are advocating for is improving the appraisal process through data science using evidence-based, data-driven analysis. And what that does, it eliminates the I think, I feel from the appraisal process, therefore mitigating the bias. You're not going to eliminate it, but you can go a long ways towards mitigating it by using the data science. And why they would roll that process back, I guess they want to make appraising great again. But what we really need to do is work and focus on modernizing the process so it's a fair and equitable treatment for everybody. Again, we can mitigate the loss utilizing the reconsideration of value process. It's an extremely effective process, and we have the ability to be heard. And I believe that this is what needs to happen. So talk to your legislators, county, city, state, federal, talk to your lenders. This is something that really needs to happen. I've been speaking the last couple of weeks on a couple of different policy panels in Washington, D.C. at the Minority Policy Summit and in Houston at the Policy Center Advisory Board meeting. So it's really important that we advocate for these types of policies, and this is Fair Housing Month, so there's a lot of affinity groups that are visiting Washington, D.C. right now. So these are things that need to be talked about and discussed. We've actually added policy to the Outside the Barn series. So again, we want to bring awareness to these issues, and this reconsideration of value is our issue that we're fighting for and standing on. And we have been doing this quite a while with the VA and with the National Community Reinvestment Coalition. So I have since hashtagged myself the ROV appraiser. So we weren't able to raise funding through grants, so we got to get out here and get it out the mud like we always do. I'm not crying about it. I just roll up my sleeves and decide to go to work. I learned a long time ago that tears and sweat are made out of the same material. So once I got finished crying about us not receiving funding, I'm going to go to the other side now and sweat and get this thing moving. Who can request an ROV? Typically, it's the aggrieved party. So if you're trying to refinance, you have the ability to request it. Sometimes the lenders will request it, depending upon the situation and what they came up with. If you're in a purchase, sometimes the brokers are responsible for trying to get the information. And typically, what I try to do in coaching a lot of appraisers is, a lot of times we want to be right. The most important thing is to get it right. And sometimes brokers have information that you may not have been privy to at the time of actually doing the inspection. So the Tidewater process allows 48 hours for the brokers to provide, or the lender to provide, additional information for the appraiser to consider in the process. So the process now, as it goes, even with the reconsideration of value, it didn't have the Tidewater component, and a lot of folks or appraisers would argue that it violates USPAP. I would say that it doesn't violate USPAP because USPAP is not a rule or a hard and fast guideline, as evidenced by it changing every other week. So if you get a couple of people together and it actually advances the profession, it can be done. When is an ROV appropriate? If you notice those folks around the table looking like, what? You know, that's kind of when you feel like you haven't gotten it right. So again, it's looking at some features. Sometimes things are missed. In the appraisal process, you may have done some updates that the appraiser might have missed or miscalculated. I know we tend to run through a house pretty fast trying to make time, and I have missed the bathroom that I didn't actually open the door in the bedroom. So it happens, but it's just a matter of bringing it to the appraiser's attention. What a ROV is not, which is important as well, it's not a way to pressure appraisers to make the number that you want. It's not a second appraisal, and it is not a guarantee that the value will change. It's not for options without data. So again, the argument can't be emotional. It has to be something objective and something substantive, because there's no such thing as a perfect appraisal unless I did it. But every appraisal has some sort of errors in it, and you have substantive errors and non-substantive errors. And so the substantive errors would have an impact on value. The non-substantive errors could be just about anything. What's included in a ROV request? Clear explanation of your concerns. Briefly describe what you believe may have been overlooked or misrepresented. Supporting data. Comparable sales include sales that are most recent, more similar, or more relevant to the subject property. And again, we have brokers and appraisers in here, and a lot of times the brokers like to throw every inch of the house into the square footage calculation. The appraisers are only looking at the gross living area above grade, and so a lot of times that needs to be separated out. Just recently had an argument with somebody, and they told me they had 4,000 square feet, and based on the average price per square foot in their area at $200 a square foot from Zillow, that their value should be $600,000. Well, of course, I was at 4 something, and I tried to explain they had a 2,000 square foot house and 2,000 square feet below grade. And so that was an argument, but I won. And it wasn't about winning, it's just about the information and how it's presented and being able to manage the expectation. And again, why is it important to understand the reconsideration of value process? Because it protects you in all aspects of real estate and encourages fair and accurate valuations. Right now, markets are down, and then there's downward pressure. So some of those market condition adjustments may be downward, and it's hard for people to think that the markets actually go down, and they do. However, the value impact with the downward markets are are a little different and unique because the situation just happened yesterday. We had a declining market, but then the marketing time was less than 90 days. And so a lot of the underwriters or the non-subject matter experts that are reviewing appraisals think, well, how can the property values be declining, but yet and still it sells under 90 days? Well, there is an extreme lack of inventory based on all the houses being bought up by people like Mr. Williams and using them as an investment class by themselves. So even though the interest rates are up and the property values are declining, they're not declining as much as they normally would be, and the marketing time is still less than 90 days. So two things can be equal. You just need to be able to explain it. The importance of working with a certified appraiser. Again, I think it's really important when you're looking at a reconsideration of value to have a subject matter expert. Now, you do have brokers and other people that have access to the information, but in my opinion, that's like going to see the podiatrist when you got a heart problem. They're both doctors, but one is a specialist. And I believe this is a specialty, and the profession doesn't really get the respect that it deserves, because a lot of times now we can diagnose our ailments if we go to WebMD. Everybody thinks they're an appraiser because they can go to Zillow or one of the other online sources, and then they want to argue about what they found versus what you found. That was me back when I had hair. Y'all don't see that? Let it go. It's gone. I done went on here and came home. Okay. Takeaways. ROV is a tool, not a complaint. It helps ensure transparency in real estate transactions. Knowing how and when to use it can protect your investment and your equity. So again, the profession lacks transparency and accountability, and when it comes to us, it lacks cultural competency and intentionality. These are things that I speak about, and when I first started advocating, I was specifically speaking for black and brown people, but as I travel the country and before I get home, they're using all my words and stuff on their presentations, which I am very flattered. I figured I might as well just go ahead and lead the whole industry, which is what we have been doing since 2023. And so I'm very honored. Thank you for listening to me. And if you all have any questions, I'll take questions for 5 minutes, and then I'll have our other panelists start to come up.
What do you think, or will Trump affect any of this from the things he's doing now? Because I got a Section 8, and
Will he affect it? It's already been affected. I mean, it's everything has been affected. That reconsideration of value policy was rolled back on March the 25th. It doesn't exist right now for HUD. So everything is affected. But that doesn't stop you from having a voice to express what it is that you're feeling. So that's something that you need to talk to your, that's a policy issue, and your voice needs to be heard. But you need to be paying attention to what's going on, because it affects any and everybody. There's nobody that's exempt.
right.
When you're selling a property, you think it's important that all properties be appraised if you're selling a property?
That's a really good question, and I didn't talk about that at all. So I'm glad you brought that up, because now they have appraisal waivers, and so with the appraisal waivers, if you have a certain credit score and you live in a certain zip code, you don't have to get an appraisal on your property. So they're basing that on those 987,000 appraisals that they looked at. They figure they've got, with the UAD data set, they can give a price per square foot for any zip code in the country. And so what tends to happen is you get that based on, let's say, a Zillow. That doesn't account for all sales. Those only account for those sales that went through that particular system. So what happens is when things start to change, like what Zillow lost the billions of dollars a couple of years ago because they were overpaying for property, but then the property value started to decline. Those models don't account for the velocity and time and when things start to change. So what then happens is you start to get what Phil Crawford refers to as data cancer. And now you got an artificial sale because you don't really know what the appraised value is, and it raises everything up in the neighborhood. So now you can start to reconcile to that highest value. Now, it shouldn't really cause a data cancer if the appraisers were doing their job, because it would look like an aberration and not a verified sale. But because appraisers are not very well trained today, people will use it as a sale in the way that you're using the market analysis, and you just need a sale to be able to prove your point, as opposed to using data science and the preponderance of evidence. It'll become a problem when they go back and try to refinance it, and then it won't be what they bought it for, and then some folks are going to be really angry and looking for fingers to point. But that particular time, that will not be on the appraiser. That would be between the lender and the realtor. The reconsideration of value. So again, you have to be able to articulate the argument and ask a question. And then based on how the appraiser responds, then you know which way to be able to move. So again, you really need to look at a reconsideration of value or get the appraisal reviewed.
One thing I wanted to piggyback on what you're talking about with your properties. Back in 2004, 2005, people were getting loans for 125% of the value of their properties. And it was under the auspice of letting them get a house. Where if you get 25% above what your house is worth, it's gonna take you 5 or 10 years to get that appreciation to balance you out. Where if you're doing an appraisal waiver and you really want that house, no matter how much it costs, you're setting yourself up in a boat that has a hole in it. So you need to get an appraisal done no matter what they want off your waiver. Also, with this gentleman here talking about the government, I'm on the board with Metro Fair Housing. Our funding from the federal government was cut because of Mr. Trump's desire to make us a more non-DEI America. We want the injunction, but you're hurting people who need these properties. You're cutting out programs to help them with that. So we have to work together to solve these issues. We have to work together with agents to not say, I'm not gonna have a waiver. I wanna make sure I know what I'm paying is what it's worth. I wanna make sure that the lenders are being fair to me as a buyer. I wanna make sure my agent is being fair to me as a buyer. You know, the reality of what we're dealing with is, in our communities, it's been going this way for centuries. And I'm not talking about just here in America, I'm talking about period. You know, but we have to start sticking together to work through this process and make it better for all of us.
Thank you, sir. And what do you do again?
I'm a pimp.
I can tell by the ponytail and the wavy hair.
No, I'm an appraiser. I've been in it for 26 years. I've seen a lot. When Thaddeus talks about the bias, it's really sad that you have to, quote unquote, whitewash your house to make sure you get an honest value. And I'm not gonna hold this up. I did a house for a lady about 20 years ago who was a personal friend of Johnny Cochran over in Country Lane. When the appraisal saw the pictures of her with Johnny Cochran, and this was before the foreclosure crisis, He picked every foreclosure house he could find to lower her value. He reduced her square footage. He said that her basement wasn't finished when it was finished at the same grade level as the above grade part. And when I was called in to do a secondary appraisal, the lender called me a liar. But I showed them the pictures of what this lady had. They did another appraisal to determine that I was right, made the other guy give her money back personally and apologize to her. She shouldn't have to go through that. Just appraise my house for what it's worth. Don't care who I'm sleeping with. Don't care who I am. Just appraise the property. And that's what we gotta change this.
Well, thank you for that comment. I was going to have you come up here on the panel, but you already did your segment, so I'm gonna get to. So this is our footprint, and when I say I've traveled the country, I have traveled the country with one of those two people back there in the corner, and these are all the places we've been since we started this program. Deborah's been on a couple of those as well. So I'll just go over. We've been to the CIAA tournament in Baltimore, Livingstone College in North Carolina, Alabama A&M University in Huntsville, Alabama, Clayton State University up the street, Tennessee State University in Nashville, Alcorn State in Mississippi, Central State in Ohio next to Dayton, Kentucky State, West Virginia State, Prairie View, Langston in Oklahoma, Arkansas Pine Bluff in Arkansas, Clark Atlanta University, that's around the corner, not right that far, Morris Brown, Cesar Chavez School in Washington, D.C., Best Academy around the corner, Atlanta Technical College. I won't even go through all the rest of them. I'll let y'all kind of to look at. This year alone, we've been to the Mississippi Minority Farmers Alliance here at the Clayton County Library. We were at the Black Farmers Conference in North Carolina. We've been to, we did the Atlanta Land Trust course at Pinnacle Bank, thanks to Tracy and Cheryl. We're in Houston at the Policy Center meeting. I was in D.C. at the Minority Policy Summit. So we continue to travel and listen and figure out how to advance this cause. And these are some of the pictures, and this is the reason that I do this work, are these folks here that we look and want to have an impact on. Again, I talked about some of those places. That top left-hand corner was a couple of weeks ago in D.C. at the Minority Policy Summit. Up under those was me and Bilal at Huntsville at Alabama A&M. Underneath that is me at the Policy Summit with some dynamic folks that you will be meeting at some point. Then we go up to the top there. That was at Langston University last year. And that young lady right there with the 1890, she is one of our students who will be graduating in May. She's an 1890 scholar. She's supposed to have a job with the USDA. She doesn't have a job with the USDA now. So my students call all the time, and I just told them I'm going to get out here and fight and get it. Last year we were able to put 21 students into internships with the U.S. Forest Service. Don't think we're going to be able to do that this year. We were trying to do 50 this year. So we're going to try to get to the banks. We're going to try to do this reconsideration of value and to raise these funds in order to get these students the jobs and experience that they deserve. To the left, that was outgoing Undersecretary Shelley with HUD, and I was in Jackson, Mississippi. I believe that was in November, speaking on a panel at HUD about reconsideration of value. Underneath there are some of our students that we put in internships this summer. They were at the Sancor North Forest out in California. And to see these kids from the beginning of the program being scared and have never been away from home to the end of the program was phenomenal to be there to witness their growth. One of our partners is Melvin Claxton. He's a Pulitzer Prize winner, and he has an app called the Itty Bitty app. All of the students wrote their books or stories for the summer on the Itty Bitty app. So we're utilizing the Itty Bitty app for everybody to be able to tell their stories. You can utilize the Itty Bitty app to be able to tell your story, your reconsideration of value story, and to have it trademarked. We also use the Itty Bitty app in our heirs property training so people can tell their stories. That's a big part of heirs property, being able to track your family tree. So it's about us utilizing our voice and writing our stories, and there's nothing easier than utilizing the Itty Bitty book app. We've started a newspaper. I even started writing, so I'm utilizing the Itty Bitty book app for our paper and a lot of the writing that we're doing. Underneath the girls at the Coronado Forest, those are our students at Fort Valley. Underneath them, our students at Best Academy. It's the only public all-male high school in the city of Atlanta, part of Atlanta Public Schools. On the top right, that was an outstanding panel that we had at Best Academy, and all of those gentlemen around the table are super dynamic in the commercial real estate space. One of them is the real estate director for Chick-fil-A. Another one is an industrial real estate developer. One is a commercial real estate broker, and one is another commercial real estate broker. And one guy, he's an all-time leading rebounder for Miami of Ohio, and he's a real estate multifamily developer now. So we try to get the kids the opportunity and exposure to folks that look like them in the space so that they can know that what's possible. Underneath there is me at the Policy Center meeting in Houston at the advisory board a few weeks ago. At the table was me and Shani at West Virginia State, which is a very unique experience. West Virginia State is a historical HBCU that's 70% white in West Virginia. It is, but again, it's all of us there, and we got students everywhere, and we go everywhere, and like I said, we represent everybody. So up underneath there is okay. That's Tracy and Cheryl from Pinnacle Bank when we did our class at the at their offices at the Peer Economic Center. So we did a class there with the Atlanta Land Trust, and then that last picture down at the bottom is us at Prairie View with our USDA rep Horace Hodge, who just recently retired from the USDA after 48 years. So when I tell you we have traveled the country and continue to travel the country, we travel the country and we continue to travel the country to represent you. Part of what I found in this space and some other organizations, they would tell everybody that I couldn't speak for them. I didn't speak for them. So I created an organization I could speak for, so I could speak for you, because there was nobody speaking for us. While y'all clapping, all that travel ain't free. Hit the QR code. Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, let's clap some more. Let's clap on the QR code, and so we can. And so we also got our podcast there, Shani and Bill Cunningham and myself, and we've had some really outstanding speakers to come on from all walks of life, and very impactful and very significant, and I'm just thankful that they take time to talk to us. That's it. So thank you all. We're going to take a quick little break, but 2 minutes if y'all want to re-up with some more refreshments from Chef Tiffany, and then we'll have my panel guests. If you all could come up, Mr. Bilal Sharif, Miss Rashanya Aldridge, Mr. Charles Williams. You talk too much, but do you want to come up, or you got something?
It doesn't matter what you need me to do.
We'll come back to you with some questions, because that's 30 minutes by itself. We want to be respectful of everybody's time.